I don't know when it happened. I don't know how it happened, but we are in November now. We are in week 5 of the 60-day novel challenge, and that means we're writing. Now, by the time you're watching this, because we drop the lessons on Mondays, hopefully you've already been writing for 2 days over the weekend. November 1st was Saturday, after all. But that doesn't mean we don't stop learning. Even though a lot of our time is going to be dedicated to writing our novels, we're still dishing out some valuable lessons every Monday, along with our daily tips and our live streams every week. That said, these lessons are going to be shorter than they used to be because I want you focused primarily on writing. Because let's start with this one fundamental truth that we cannot get rid of. You're going to be writing a lot, like a lot. 50,000 words, that's a lot of words, okay? And most people would write that over the course of a couple months. We're writing it in 30 days. And since 99.9% of us don't have the luxury of writing as a full-time job, we're cramming it in where we can, around our jobs, around our responsibilities, around our friends and family. That's not to stress you out, okay? That's not my goal here. It's not going to be easy, and we're going to be here doing it with you. But that's to explain that these lessons are going to be shorter. We're going to keep them concise. We're going to focus on what you need to do. And to break it down in a way that we can digest, this week is all about the first act. Next week is all about Act 2A, or the first half of the second act. The third week in November, or the 7th week in the challenge, is Act 2B, the second half of the second act. And then, of course, we wrap it up with the last week, with the third act, where your novel comes together. That means this week we're talking about the first act. Specifically, we're going to talk about writing that opening scene, because that blank page can be a pain in the butt. And then we're going to talk about the different beats of the first act: the ordinary world, the inciting incident, and the first plot point. Okay, let's talk about the opening scene of your novel, because this is, I was going to say arguably, probably inarguably, one of the hardest ones to write. And the thing is, you're not going to get it right on the first draft. This is going to be something that you're going to revisit a couple times, probably, maybe more than that, to get perfect. But I have some advice to help you conquer this first scene of your story, so the rest, you're off to the races. And actually, through this entire month, I want you to keep this one thing in mind. Right now, we are focusing on momentum over perfection. Don't get me wrong, I struggled with perfectionism as well, and it took a lot of practice and a lot of work to get over seeing bad writing in my first draft and saying, okay, we'll address that later. I just got to keep moving forward. But again, we're writing a lot of words this month, so we need to focus on momentum. We need to keep our spirits up, and we need to keep pushing forward. And we have to keep that in mind when we're writing this opening scene as well. I don't want you staring at a blank screen and that flashing cursor for 5, 10, 30 minutes and not writing a single word, because that's how we get deflated and that's how we waste precious time. But if you've been following along with the lessons, with the template, with the live shows, with all the tips we've been dishing out, then you already know your story pretty well. So I don't need to explain any of that to you. Instead, I'm going to use the next minute or two to drop some tips for you on how to write your opening scene. First, I want you to just throw out any idea of heavy exposition in this scene. We want our readers to feel before they know too much, because that's the point of our stories. We're trying to get the readers emotionally invested so they follow along. And sure, they might be interested by some great world building or some fact dumping right at the beginning, but they won't get invested. They won't feel anything from that. So focus on feelings first. As for how you actually write this opening scene, there are 3 different ways, when we boil it right down, that you can write an opening scene. The first is setting led. This is where we give this strong vibe of where and when and what is going on. We immerse them in the world. Again, not through heavy exposition, but in a way that draws them in and makes them interested. We can also go with a character-led opening. This ideally shows the protagonist doing something based on a want or a fear. Remember, it's all about emotions, and through this entire story, we're going to be picking away at your protagonist's internal conflict. So what better place to start laying the foundation than right at the opening? And of course, there is action-led, which is when you drop us right into a moment, whether that be a fight scene, a car chase, an argument, a piece of devastating news being delivered, anything that counts as a dynamic scene that something happens to someone, that's action, baby. And bear in mind, action doesn't necessarily mean conflict. It means that something is happening to them. So while I'm writing an urban fantasy, that action might be an actual fight. If you're writing an office rom-com, action is going to be very different. It might be a breakup. It might be a hookup. It might be anything that you think is dynamic and you can then leverage for other things. You got action. Also, feel free to combine any of these 3 together, right? An immersive setting filled with character action. You can do all 3 of them. You can do 2 of them. what have you. The idea is that we're leaning into the emotion. We're getting readers to feel something, to become invested, and to become interested in learning more. And just a couple quick tips to wrap up this section before we start talking about the first act. First, as you're writing, focus on using specific nouns over adjectives and using dynamic verbs over adverbs. This will come largely in revision, so don't dwell on it too much. But if you're looking for a more engaging opening, these are the things you're going to be looking for. And though I mentioned it in the character-led opening style, in any opening that you do, I want you to drop in one little seed, one little kernel, one little nugget of your character's lie or their backstory, their big hurt, or something that they want, a goal that they have. Give us something to latch onto about this character. It doesn't have to be obvious. It doesn't have to be in our face, but it's something that will grow and develop over time so that when we learn about it towards the end of the book and we reread your novel again, we see, okay, that's where it came from. That's where we saw it first, right in the opening scene. And finally, and this is fundamental for every scene, but especially the opening scene, make sure something has changed by the end of the scene. Something has pushed the protagonist towards the inciting incident, which we'll learn about in a second. Something has made them want something new, or they've accomplished something. Every scene needs change, but the opening scene needs it especially. Okay, now the rest of this lesson, we're going to be talking about the first act of the 3-act structure, because that is what we're focusing on this week. There are 3 beats within the 3-act structure: the ordinary world, the inciting incident, and the first plot point. The ordinary world, otherwise known as the exposition, is what is normal for your character when the story begins. It's the place where they exist, the mindset that they exist in, the things they do on a day-to-day basis. Now, ordinary doesn't mean boring. Bilbo's ordinary world was a nice, peaceful shire where everyone was happy and getting along and they were celebrating. That's great. Katniss's ordinary world was hunting for food to provide for her family in a dystopian future. Your ordinary world might be post-apocalyptic. It might be mages dueling at a school. It might be seeing aliens, fighting a war against aliens, piloting an alien ship through a waygate to a distant galaxy. Whatever it is, the ordinary world is your protagonist's ordinary. It is their usual life before the story kicks into gear. And the idea behind this is that we establish who the character is, what they want, and what their mindset is like, so that when we do break it, when we drive them towards something more exciting and usually dangerous, it has a bigger impact. As you're writing your ordinary world, you want to give your readers insight into the setting, not just the setting where a character is now, but where it is in the larger world that they'll be experiencing. You'll also want to hint at conflicts. It doesn't have to be a direct showing of it, but there should be some kind of conflict either inside the character or on the borders or somewhere else that is made allusion to. This is also where you want to establish some core relationships, especially people who have been around for a while. This is where we're going to start to see them. And then, like I said before, we're going to hint at that lie, at this big flaw that stops your character from being all that they can be. We don't want to draw attention to it. We don't even want it to necessarily be obvious the first time a reader sees it, but we want it to be there. For a book this short, the ordinary world establishment will take 1 to 3 scenes. Whether that's 3 chapters is up to you, but we don't want to dwell too long here. We want to get to the exciting stuff, and that brings us to the inciting incident. Okay, now that we've established what is normal in the ordinary world, the inciting incident comes and just smashes it. It ruins everything. The inciting incident is an event that comes in and it shakes up your protagonist. It cannot be ignored by them. Not really. In some cases, they can pretend to ignore it, but it is not going away. That's because a good inciting incident makes it personal for the protagonist. It gives them a stake in the game. It makes things concrete for them, and the danger becomes real. And as a result, the goal that the character needs for the rest of the story becomes shaped in this moment. They know what needs to be done as a result of this inciting incident. And you know I'm going to say it, but if we can leverage the lie and the big hurt somehow in this inciting incident, it is all the juice here. Again, we don't want to be explicit about it yet. We don't want to shove it in our readers' faces, but we know as an author, hey, this particularly nags at our character. So if you haven't got to the inciting incident yet and you're going to be writing it soon, think about what makes this personal for the character. What's going to have enough of an impact on them to drive them out of the ordinary world where they are comfortable and as safe as they can be. Because we need to remember from our week 2 lesson that the lie exists to keep the protagonist safe. They are most comfortable there because they can't experience the trauma that they experienced before ever again. And their ordinary world is indicative of that. They are safe there. The lie keeps them safe there. So this inciting incident has to be so meaningful that it starts their journey, pushing them away from the lie and towards the truth. This is where we also want to show a few parts of the larger external conflict. Sure, they don't know everything that's going on right now. They maybe only know the most dire consequences of inaction, but this should make things going on out there real to them. And then finally, the third beat of the first act that we're going to be encountering this week is called the first plot point, or the point of no return. This is a reaction to the inciting incident. So the inciting incident happens, the protagonist takes as much time as they can realistically afford to think about what they're going to do next, and then they decide to go forward in the journey. This further solidifies everything they started realizing in the inciting incident, but it's more important than that. First, it gives them a little bit of early agency. Now, for the first half or so of a story, a protagonist is very reactive, and we'll talk more about this when we talk about the second act. But this is the first element of their agency, the first time they are a little bit proactive and starting to shed those bonds and resist the lie that has kept them safe this whole time. Because ultimately, in the first plot point, the character makes a decision to go forward, to leave the ordinary world and pursue this new goal that they now have in their mind. There is no turning back from this. If they were to turn back, they would die. Potentially, literally, potentially figuratively. This agency is so important in this situation because the rest of the story happens because the protagonist made this choice. They chose to leave their ordinary world, even if it doesn't feel like they had a choice. They chose this action, and everything else that follows is because of them, good and bad. And then they're going to be catapulted off into the wild, unknown world of the rest of our story, and we are going to be mean to them. We're going to give them wins. We're going to give them friends and enemies. They're going to learn new things. They're going to have fun, and they are going to suffer. But that's for next week. I am just so excited to be embarking on the writing part of the 60-day novel challenge with you. It's been a blast so far. I've seen so many great comments and realizations and discoveries within this challenge community. It's been fantastic. I can't wait to see them all now be put to digital paper. As you embark on this journey, we are having daily writing sprints here on our YouTube channel Monday to Friday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you're subscribed. If you learned anything from this video, give me a thumbs up, keep me going here. And we have a ton of great resources over at Dabble U Campus and within the template if you haven't checked it out by now. As you're going through this, you're going to see your daily goal adjusted based on how much you write every day as we're writing towards our goal on November 30th. And if you followed along with the homework, you have character profiles and notes and world building and the plot grid and so much stuff already set up in Dabble to assist you when things get tough, because they will probably get tough. This is not going to be an easy month, but it's going to be one heck of an exciting month. And I'm so glad that you are here to join us for it. I'll see you next time. Happy writing.